Welcome to Ferment Radio, a podcast series on bacterial and social fermentation. Fermentation can incite social action, spark creativity, and bring surprising new tastes to our lives. My name is Aga Pokrivka, and I invite you to join us in a conversation on living interconnectivities, from macro to micro, from societal to cellular, and from global to personal.
This is a meditation for microbes. It is an attempt to speak directly to microbial partners inside human bodies. Tools for the meditation are yoga poses, breathing, and aromas. This meditation, inspired by microbes themselves, will invite bodies to give attention to non-human within, or even embody a perspective where non-human and human muddle and mingle. Bodies muddle and mingle. Connect with small non-humans within.
That was the beginning of the Microbial Meditation, an instructional audio by Riina Hannula that guides you through selected movements from yin and hatha yoga to stimulate the vagus nerve. You will hear it every now and then throughout this episode. Can we intentionally influence our nervous system through what we do? If so, could we also activate the main nerve of our parasympathetic nervous system, known as vagus nerve? This is the central communication pathway between the gut and the brain, and between microbiota and our nervous system. Could we interact with our gut microbiota, and our gut microbiota interacts with us? In this episode of Ferment Radio, together with Riina Hannula, we start with Microbial Meditation, an instructional audio that guides us through selected movements from yin and hatha yoga to stimulate the vagus nerve. With this meditation, we wonder if it is possible to embody scientific facts and if our well-being involves the well-being of our microscopic companions as well. Riina Hannula, an artist and doctoral student in sociology and the Center for the Social Study of Microbes at University of Helsinki, studies humans as holobionts from a gut-brain axis point of view and looks into how microbes think, feel and behave with humans. Now let's get back to our meditation.
Vagus is the largest nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system, which is thought to be outside of human command. The wisdom of the gut arrives to our brain to handle through this nerve wandering through brain, heart and stomach. Vagus nerve sends messages of your perception to your microbes and is the most important actor to communicate between brain and microbiota. Se resonoi. To balance vagus is to balance the whole symphony.
Vagus nerve, it has so many functions because it's connecting all of the visceral organs, and especially the gut and the brain. But the microbial wisdom that is somehow can be signaled through this nerve is my main focus. And then of course because I'm, for example, following #VagusNerve in Instagram and gaining a lot of info.
This is the best.
I'm actually now thinking, latest thought is that I would like to make one this kind of more media studies based article about vagus nerve, just like analyzing the discourse that happens like in this very popularized context.
Oh wow! And so what is hiding behind the vagus nerve hashtag? What is the main trend you think on Instagram regarding that?
It's the self-help and health enhancement tool,
Okay.
in good and bad, because sometimes it's just like this kind of biopower, just colonializing everything we can, somehow in order to gain better health and like optimizing our bodies, But then the other thing is also that if you have like it's also really much in like when you're trying to heal yourself from traumas, you can use that. That's one of the like largest discourse, like how to, by activating your vagus nerve, you can heal from your trauma, because it's like nervous system regulation. And vagus nerve is like when it's active, then you are in this so-called rest and digest mode. And when you are in the sympathetic nervous system, then you are in a flight or fight mode.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like anxious mode for stressed people somehow, and that's why it's like very like interesting to people maybe who are experiencing anxiety and stuff like that in the stressed environments, that they can find these kind of little methods to activate the good part of your nervous system somehow.
What about meditation or yoga? Like how did it come to this context and your interest in the vagus nerve?
It came like because one of the things that it's studied, and this is really funny part of it, because there is like this really neuroscientific strain of vagus nerve studies, but then there is also like polyvagal theory, which is kind of like not so, in the scientific community, it's not like totally celebrated,
Mm-hmm.
It's still a little bit vague. But this theory has been really influential with all these self-help people. So you don't really know where are the claims coming from anymore, because facts always tend to have this thing that you have some science and you have the lay public that it's using that, and then you have this and this and this knowledge production things, and they all are mixed. And since I'm sociologist, I don't think that I am supposed to gain like objective knowledge on vagus nerve as a medical object, but about the social context, So it's all the time a little bit different, and I have to like all the time make sure that everybody understands that I'm not a health expert and I'm not producing health facts, or medical facts at all. But I'm like interested of how this kind of science is changing the perception of our bodies, and maybe what possibilities there open to understand the multi-species existence, like this human microbial consortium thing,
Mm-hmm.
And that's my focus with this, everything that I learn about vagus nerve. And that's not very strong, narrative at the moment, because usually vagus nerve is just discussed that deep breathing will activate your vagus nerve, and it's like usually not so much about microbes. And
exactly. I thought like this is kind of a tricky part, right? Because even if you somehow work or try to impact how your vagus nerve works, then to even like try to understand, is it because of the well-being of the microbes or, anything else? Yeah, it's like, it's always so complex. And I think that maybe it's also this paradigm of science, which tends to be sometimes quite simplistic, like, hey, this is the reason for that, rather than see it as a crossbred of different influences, right?
Yeah. Well, I am trying to somehow limit my research in a way that I will talk with the scientists who are actually studying the gut-brain connection, and the microbes with the vagus nerve. Because otherwise it will just go to all these health aspects, and they are interesting, but they are not my main thing. in vagus nerve. But yeah, in microbial meditation, we are interested in vagus nerve to gain understanding and think with microbes. And that's like what I try to address throughout the microbial meditation audio itself somehow.
So how microbial meditation works?
There is these movements because I think that we think differently when we move, and then the thinking is more like thinking, feeling. So there is movements, and there is breathing, and there is soundscape, and there is kind of post-human and new materialist theory a little bit, but not too difficult way. So I think that most people wouldn't feel that it's like too like theoretical or something like that. But just I think the main point is instead of me going, for example, to the field with yoga people and interview them, I want to create this world that is the field, that is the platform for thinking with microbes, and embody somehow these scientific facts or claims and think with them, negotiate somehow that what is it when there is new facts coming, informing us that this is how your body is working. And okay, what then? Do you just pour them in, and is that it, I think not, because there is always, you have to imagine what it means and experience what it means. And then the perception is changing, It's not, that's the little spot where I'm working, in between the, our embodied experience and the facts that are all the time like negotiating what we are or how do we understand. And yeah, especially when there is like non-human agents involved, I think there is a lot of, if not imagination, then just like you have to picture that somehow in all of your senses somehow. What does it mean to be this kind of human microbial consortium?
As there are plenty of microbial cells inside human body, they affect on what we want to eat, what we want to do, who we want to be with, what attracts us in general. Whose desire is your desire? Let us be in terms with our germs.
So basically, I'll just think out loud because I want to understand it well, or I want to feel it well. I don't know.
Yeah.
So if there is this vagus nerve, which is kind of a brain-gut connection, and then where the microbes are there exactly? I'm sorry, I'm totally green about it. So we have the microbiota in the gut, right? And if our vagus nerve is in a good state, let's say, or calm state, or it's not stressed, it might influence on this axis our brain, basically. Is it right? Am I kind of simplifying it correct?
No. Yeah, I think it was correct. One of the things in its mechanisms is this, that it's bidirectional, like it goes both ways. So I don't know if it's simplification, but this is how it's addressed, that it's bidirectional. And so microbes inform brain and brain inform the gut. And, 30% these kind of motor fibers and then the other % something else fibers, and this doesn't so much tell me anything because it's these kind of statistics that I don't feel that help me to somehow embody that.
Yeah, sure.
And for me, it's more interesting to think that how everything happens in more like in a composition, in assemblies, like network, as a network of, not just brain and gut, but also the other organs like lungs and the heart it goes through all of them. And then also I think what I've understood is that also you can influence the whole system by deep breathing, for example, because then the whole vagus nerve is like, when it's active, then it is going to say to the brain that, okay, now we can chill, And then the brain goes and says to the gut that, yeah, we can chill here also. And one of the speculative approaches is that does microbes signal more efficiently to our brains and other intestines when it's active? And, so if it is so that if we take care of the functions of the vagus nerve, are we taking care of the microbes also better?
Mm-hmm.
And this is also like, am I now simplifying too much? And is it ever that simple anyway? But I would like to think, of course, that, well-being is well-being of everything. And why microbes are so interesting to me is that they connect us to the whole environment, and environmental issues are really dear to me. So that's why I'm thinking what's inside of us that is environment, ecologies within ecologies, like Salla Sariola, my supervisor, always says. And so bi-directional, but maybe more like orchestra, of things. And I would like to think that microbes can, inform our brains better when we take care of the nerve or something. But that's also maybe something that I will find out more about all the time, because I'm reading more all the time about vagus nerve, and also experiencing myself and listening to other people, my lay experts. And so,
this is exactly what I wanted to ask. So what is the experience you just mentioned? I'm experiencing it myself. What are the experiences of, if of course you would like to tell us about that? What could be those experiences?
Well, I think that they are like part of my maybe some sort of everyday life nowadays already. Like I've always been like a body sensitive person. And now that I learn about all these tricks that you can activate vagus nerve, I'm actually finding out that, hey, I've always done that. I always tap myself, or I always caress my arm, even to the degree that some of my friends are like, why are you caressing yourself, all the time, or something like that. And then also like, I think that I may have like some IBS symptoms, but I don't think it's like a symptom, but it's just like sensitivity of my gut nerves and synaptic gut place, that whenever I have been sleeping bad, or, being nervous about something, or eating wrong stuff, having emotional stress or something, my stomach is making a sound, and I can feel it in the whole nervous system also. And now that I'm starting to understand that it's actually the nervous system, I'm like more aware of that and more sensitive and more like helpful to my microbes and my body, maybe, because like these kind of things that are like, this is the, the area of self-help of the vagus nerve for me also, and the area of autoethnographic experience, which I'm not sure I will include in my study or not. But maybe in some small detail, maybe with the hashtag vagus nerve thing that I'm following, because almost all of them are like, hey, did you know you have this nerve that is the secret weapon for your well-being, or something like that. It's very...
You know what? When this episode will be published, and usually I do like a small thing on Instagram, I'm totally putting that hashtag there. Yeah. I want to be part of it.
Yeah. It's very cute and funny, and sometimes like it would be very interesting to make all these kind of biopolitical, inquiries to that also, because sometimes I'm also feeling that is it really necessary to be so governmental, towards your matters? Mm-hmm. Because would it be also like cool and restful and being in a rest and digest mode to just let them be, and like listening, but maybe that's the thing also at the same time, but just the format of getting like this kind of information it doesn't feel very relaxing for me. It's more like demanding, and it's very oftentimes connected to neoliberal things that, hey, you should be like better person, you know. So yeah, we have to be somehow careful of not taking it so that we just have to be like more rested so we can work better, you know. This is the thing that we have to be alert from.
Yeah. It's a tricky part when you put, you know, your, I don't know, rest time on your to-do list.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's very easy to turn to like just be mechanic with that rather than really like looking into it. Yeah. But you mentioned about that you've been kind of always actually unconsciously kind of supporting your vagus nerve by tapping your arm or caressing your arm. And so what are others like things one could support their vagus nerve? Like
you will find out about it with the hashtag vagus nerve. It's you know, there are these really like straightforward, you know, tips.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like for example, cold exposure is one of them, and even like putting a cold water in your face. But everybody, if you feel like heated, you know, of course you feel it in your face maybe, and you want to put cold water on you. So it's kind of like general embodied knowledge somehow, but then you have the factual somehow information. It makes it more solid somehow. And then humming is one. Yeah. And I probably don't remember all of them, but they're really basic, you know, like humming, cold exposure, moving, slowly moving, or like moving according to how you feel maybe, and rotating movements. You know, I don't know how to say, but, you know, swinging yourself is one thing. And singing, that's maybe the same, then humming. There is many things, but now I'm like thinking of these
that's
few things.
Very interesting because I can definitely kind of, from my own experience, subjective experience, I can see that I have tendency or like I crave those things when I don't feel so good or there is something like a difficult happening. I would crave for most of those things.
Yeah.
Maybe besides the cold water.
Yeah. I'm now living by the river and I'm like, at last I can start doing this, like that I can slowly like acquaint my body to the cold water when the autumn comes. So because I don't go to Avanto, this dipping in the
I
ice
used to
cold.
do this.
I can't do that, but now I have the chance that I can do it like little by little because I live by the water that will become really cold in the
that
winter.
will be very cold because I have a feeling when the water is moving, it's even somehow colder.
Yeah.
Because with Avanto, I had these experiences that I just get to this hole and I kind of don't move much.
Yeah.
And then I feel like I create like a very thin surface of a warm water around my body.
Nice.
When you start to swim, it feels colder. Your blood starts to circulate faster, but on the skin, to me, it feels colder.
Yeah.
Because then all the, bones are exposed.
Yeah.
And this is where the cold kind of... this is how I experience it.
Yeah, that's funny image, that you create this layer of warm water around you.
Yeah.
I like the idea. I will try to use that when I go.
Yeah.
It's always nice to think that also maybe microbes are then more satisfied if you do those things, I don't know if it's so yet. And I don't know if any scientists would agree if somebody claims that, this is one of the things that I want to maybe ask from the, my informants who are coming from the field, then, because I want to do lab ethnography also, which is one of the cases I will have. And then I get to go inside to this, discourse and maybe what's behind it somehow and stuff like that. And also like put these different knowledge productions into a negotiation, like how would scientists feel about the humbug part and the lay publics doing the things,
Mm-hmm.
because that might feel like really chaotic for for someone who is actually studying vagus nerve, and then there is the whole culture of, doing these things, and they are not probably based on, because most of the vagus nerve clinical trials are done with mice. So it's like there is a lot of extrapolation going on also. And the facts that are used maybe in the lay public context are coming from, inspired by the polyvagal theory, that it's not like agreed yet. So it's a tricky mess.
I totally feel it, because the question would be, if we feel good or we feel bad, does it mean that microbes or our microbiome feels the same?
Yeah, because some of them are dying because of that, probably.
So it's a tricky question.
It's not like so straightforward that there is bad and good microbes. So,
exactly.
So that's also making it more messy.
All kind of sources announce us the importance of our microbiota and the function of vagus nerve. We arrive to understand them with scientific notions, through language and equipments, through data and illustrations, microscopic images. Let us not forget to feel.
What I find very interesting in what you describe is that so there are particular scientific facts which are objective, but then can we experience it through the subjectivity of our own bodies?
Yeah, I think that all the medical facts are going to be embodied when they are circulated enough time, somehow. Like there was time when we didn't know that we have like intestines or something, I don't know. But now it's like we know all the time that we have a liver and, we have guts, it's more explicit for us. And that's part of our experience, that I have a pain in my, I don't know, somewhere here, and then you can locate what's the organ, you can Google, hey, which side the liver is or something, I don't know, And so I think it's just a matter of time when this kind of organ, vagus nerve, that it's relatively new, at least in a popular context, but now booming and hyped, that it is going to be like general knowledge and changing the perceptions of our body. And what then, like what kind of narrative do we offer for this nerve? Is it a chance to understand us more as holobionts?
Bodies imagining the multiplicity of others around us, some finding their way in the landscapes of human bodies. Bodies, imagine earth, the soil, imagine abundant compost, colonies inside. Aren't you craving to approach these surroundings? Favorable biota of the forests. Bodies let their mind travel. Microbes greet each other.
I know that in your work, now I will be going a little bit step away from a microbial meditation to come back to it. But in your work, you've been also having experience of collaborating with goats, right?
Yeah.
And you've been making kind of performances or experiences of like attempting to exchange like bacteria with the goats you've been living with.
Yeah.
By, for example, leaking like this salt they leak. In order to, and now I'm recapping your work, so please tell me if I am saying if I understood it wrongly. So by kind of exposing yourself as a human to microbiota or microbes, which could be goats microbes, that some sorts of empathy or connection could be developed. But maybe empathy is the word.
Yeah, or maybe I usually use sympathy because, and in the context where I'm using it is coming from this idea that sympathy is kind of like symbiosis. They start with the same, where like sym means together in Latin. And I like the word sympathy in a very new materialist context where, for example, Brian Matsumi in their book, What Animals Teach Us About Politics, is describing that sympathy is like non-human affect somehow, that it's not like, because they claim that it's empathy. Empathy is something human, human feeling. But sympathy is, you can have it towards a color.
Right.
Or intensity, this kind of new materialist thinking that everything is not just about feelings, but it's about that you can really relate. And I really practice that, with non-human things, and they don't have to be living, or, I don't somehow categorize in this is the really living and this is a little bit less animated and this is not animated, I don't have these categories. So of course I want to like put a lot of sympathy towards sentient beings, and that's a different conversation. But I want my somehow work to be informed by this non-human affect sympathy, that is like kind of same thing than symbiosis in a way, because I like to think in terms of creative evolution somehow, that all of these things are all the time there in the processes that we have with like non-human agents, I think it's super nice to be in this fluid state where you don't actually you can't put this self and non-self dichotomies up all the time, but you just have to demolish that all the time within you. And but of course it's like our brain are constructed so that we think about self and non-self, and other things constantly probably, but that doesn't have to mean it's a negative thing. It's othering can be also a really positive thing, like at least in Deleuze and Guattari's thinking, again, these new materialist thinkers, I think that it's like differentiation is not like a negative thing, and difference is not a negative thing, but it's like productive and nice thing that puts things to emerge.
Yeah,
it's not a lack, or it's not a something outside of the norm, but there is the positive difference somehow, and that's really different.
I don't know how kind of culturally and what is the story, for example, of a handshake or hug or kiss in between humans when they greet each other, because in a way it could be also seen as an exchange of their microbes.
Yeah.
And maybe an attempt to create some sort of a sympathy, as we were talking before about trying to do it with other animals than humans. But it's been, I think, going on with in between humans for a while.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I don't know if we can ever know about this, but it would be really nice to know how did they think before Louis Pasteur and all this.
Definitely.
Like before we knew about these tiny, like invisible companions, what were the context for, exposure and exchange of, but there's still like in intimacy, there is probably always have been something like, how close do you want to be with someone, like what was the feeling before all this? Like, because now we know that, I don't want this person's microbes, or I want those microbes, But how was it before we had this knowledge?
Exactly.
I thank you, bodies and microbes, for this yoga meditation. As you get up and take the effect of this audio with you, do remember to think with your microbes, companions you always have with you. Exchange them and create together new assemblages, connecting more with your surroundings, non-human intellectuals. heroic microbes that compose these orchestras of our bodies. Trust the wisdom of your guts. Trust the wisdom of your guts. Your guts.
Trust your gut. There is nothing else to add. Well, maybe just one clarification. During our conversation with Riina, we mentioned avanto. For those who might not know, avanto is a Finnish word for a hole in the ice, and it's an activity that involves dipping into freezing cold water during winter. Apparently, our microbes enjoy it as well. If you like this episode, please share it. If you would like to know more about the show, listen to this episode again, or find previous episode, please go to fermentradio.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. We would love to know what you thought of this conversation, hear your human microbial stories, and your suggestions for the future episodes. We are always looking forward to hearing from you at hello@fermentradio.com. You can also leave us an audio message by connecting to us on our Instagram. Ferment Radio is brought to you by Super Eclectic and is supported by Microbial Lives, Practices of New Human Microbial Cultures, a project at the center of the Social Study of Microbes. I'm very grateful for this support and most of all for all our amazing Ferment Radio listeners. Keep fermenting and stay tuned for the next episode of Ferment Radio.